Hey there, and welcome to Tales by June, where hearts break, heal, and sometimes seek revenge. Let's begin today's story.
Hey, before we begin, let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. I always thought Betrayal would come with thunder. Something loud, something impossible to miss. But the truth is quieter, like the faint buzz of a phone vibrating against the marble counter while you're pouring a glass of wine. That's how I found out. The night it all started, the house was dim. The only light came from the small lamp over the sink and the soft glow of the oven clock. It was almost 11. Ryan was still out, working late, as he had been more and more often. I wasn't suspicious at first. He was ambitious, and I admired that. Or maybe I wanted to admire it, because admiring meant I didn't have to question him. But then his phone lit up on the counter. He'd left it behind. A mistake. The screen flashed with her name. I didn't know it yet. Just 3 letters and a heart. A text preview glowed up at me, words so sharp they felt like broken glass under my skin. I miss you already. Last night was perfect. My hand trembled around the stem of the wine glass. My chest tightened, and I had to set it down before it slipped and shattered. For a moment, I stood there frozen, staring at the glow of that screen, telling myself not to look, not to scroll. But my body betrayed me. My fingers unlocked the phone with a code I had known for years, the numbers clicking like locks breaking open in my head. The messages were there in black and blue bubbles. Flirtations. Secrets. Pictures that made my stomach turn. Words that made my heart split clean in two. Ryan, my husband of 4 years, my college sweetheart, the man who had promised me forever, was having an affair. And just like that, the ghost of my mother's voice filled the kitchen. Men always take what they want, Harper. Don't ever let one break you the way your father broke me. At 17, I had stood in our tiny, suffocating apartment and sworn I'd never be like her. My mother had spent years chasing scraps of love from a man who lied, cheated, and left her with nothing but regret. I had sworn I'd never tolerate that kind of betrayal. And yet, here I was, staring at proof that I had walked the very same path. The clock ticked on, every second pulling me deeper into a storm of anger, hurt, disbelief. I could almost hear Ryan's laugh in my head, the one that used to disarm me, the one that now made me sick. When he finally walked through the door past midnight, the air shifted. He tossed his keys on the table, loosened his tie, and flashed me that practiced smile. "You're still up?" he asked, casual, as though nothing in the world was wrong. I watched him, my throat dry, my pulse hammering. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the glass at him, shatter it across the wall like my heart. But instead, I forced my lips into a shape that resembled a smile. "Yeah," I said softly. "Couldn't sleep." He kissed my forehead, like always. His cologne filled my nose. I wanted to recoil. My fingers itched to reach for his phone, to shove the evidence in his face. But I didn't. Not yet, because something in me, something deeper than anger, was waking up. I saw my mother again in my mind. Her hollow eyes, her weary hands, the way she whispered apologies to herself as if she had done something wrong. No, not me. I wouldn't cry in front of him. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't be the woman who stayed because she thought she couldn't survive alone. If Ryan thought he could lie to me, cheat on me, and still keep the life we'd built together, he was wrong. So I smiled. I asked him about his day. I let him believe I was clueless, naive, still wrapped in the cocoon of his false love. All while inside me, a plan began to take shape. A plan that whispered, "Don't just walk away. Make him pay. Build the life he never thought you could. Prove him wrong, the way Mom never could." As he fell asleep beside me that night, his breath even and steady, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My heart was shattered, but something sharper than grief was holding me together. Something dangerous. Something electric. Revenge. And for the first time since I'd read those texts, I felt alive. When I was 10 years old, I learned what betrayal looked like before I even knew how to spell the word. It came wrapped in the sound of slammed doors, muffled arguments through thin walls, and my mother's voice cracking like glass under pressure. I used to lie in bed at night, hugging my pillow tight, listening to her plead with him. "Please, Mark. Please. Don't do this to us." Her words were always swallowed by silence, or worse, laughter. the kind of laughter that said he had already made up his mind. My father, Mark Hayes, wasn't the type of man you'd expect to leave his family. To the outside world, he was charming, successful, a man with an easy smile and a handshake that could win over anyone. At school events, teachers used to say, "You're lucky, Harper. Your dad's such a nice guy." But I knew better. I remember the night it all came crashing down. Mom had made spaghetti, his favorite. She always tried to fix things with food, as though love could be stirred into sauce and baked into garlic bread. She set the table, lit candles, even wore lipstick, which was rare. I think she believed if she could just remind him of who they were, he'd remember too. But he came home late. The smell of perfume clung to his shirt, one that wasn't hers. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice trembling as she set down the serving spoon. "Out," he said, dismissive, already loosening his tie, already looking for an escape from the confrontation. "With her?" Her voice cracked. That was the first time I heard the name. The mistress. I didn't know her then, but I'd come to hate her shadow, the way she hovered over our lives without ever stepping foot inside our home. He didn't deny it. That was what stung the most. He just stood there, cold and silent, while my mother's world fell apart in front of me. "You have a daughter," she whispered, pointing at me. I sat frozen at the table, spaghetti untouched, eyes wide. "You have a family. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" His jaw tightened. "I'm not happy, Claire. I haven't been happy for years." That was it. No apology, no regret, just a statement that broke everything. Within months, he was gone. The mistress became his wife. And my mother, well, she became a shadow of herself. She worked long hours at the diner to keep us afloat. She came home with tired eyes, smelling of grease and coffee, and every night she sat at the kitchen table with her head in her hands, whispering words I wasn't supposed to hear. I wasn't enough. I should have been enough. Those words carved into me like knives. I wanted to shake her, to tell her it wasn't her fault, that no amount of spaghetti or lipstick could fix a man who didn't want to be fixed. But I was just a child, and children don't get to rewrite their parents' stories. So instead, I promised myself something in the silence of my bedroom. I'll never let a man do that to me. I'll never beg someone to love me. If he cheats, I walk. If he lies, I leave. I will never be my mother. My father tried, over the years, to stay in my life. He'd send gifts on birthdays, pretty boxes with ribbons that felt like bribes. He'd call sometimes, his voice awkward, asking if I wanted to spend the weekend with him and Sarah, the mistress turned wife. I always said no. When I turned 16, he showed up at my school unannounced. I remember standing by the lockers, watching him walk toward me in his pressed suit, his smile rehearsed. "Harper," he said softly, like we were close, like he hadn't torn our family apart. I crossed my arms. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you. Just talk." He glanced around, lowering his voice. "I know things were hard with your mom and me, but I'm still your dad." "No," I said sharply. My friends froze beside me, watching the scene like a movie. "You don't get to be my dad. You made your choice." His face fell, but I didn't care. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there in the hallway with his hands in his pockets, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. From that day forward, I cut him out completely. No calls, no visits, no letters. He was a ghost, and I liked it that way. But ghosts have a way of clinging to you. Even years later, when I saw Ryan smiling across the dorm room at me, when I thought I'd found someone who wasn't like my father, those ghosts whispered in my ear. "Don't trust too easily. Don't fall too hard. Don't end up like Mom." And yet, here I was now, 30 years old, sitting in my kitchen, staring at proof that history had repeated itself. The cycle had found me. I met Ryan when I was 19. It was the first week of sophomore year, and I was rushing across campus, late for a marketing lecture when I dropped my notebook. He bent down at the same time I did, our hands brushing over the same spiral binding. "Yours?" he asked, flashing a smile that felt like sunlight cutting through a storm. I remember my cheeks heating up as I nodded. "Yeah, thanks." He introduced himself as Ryan Carter, a business major who had a habit of being in the right place at the right time. Within days, I was seeing him everywhere, at the library, in the cafeteria, even jogging across the quad. It felt almost scripted, the way fate kept shoving us together. He wasn't like the boys I dated in high school. Ryan was confident without being cocky, attentive without being suffocating. He made me laugh in ways that disarmed me, chipped away at the steel walls I'd built since my father left. On our third date, under the string lights of a little Italian restaurant, he looked at me and said, "I don't believe in divorce." Those words were like balm to my wounded heart. I clung to them, let them echo inside me, let them rewrite the story I thought I knew about men. By 23, we were engaged. By 26, I walked down the aisle in a lace gown, certain I'd broken my family's curse. But the ghost of my father tried to claw his way back into that chapter of my life. 2 months before the wedding, he called me out of the blue. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Harper," he said, his voice dripping with a hope that made my stomach twist. "I heard the news. You're getting married." I held the phone tight. "How did you even find out?" "People talk. I still keep in touch with some folks back home." He cleared his throat. "Listen, I'd love to be there, to see you walk down the aisle. I could bring Sarah." The name hit me like a slap. Sarah, the mistress, the woman who stole my father and wore the title of wife that should have been my mother's. "No." My voice was sharp, final. "You're not coming. Not with her. Not ever." "Harper, please. I know I made mistakes, but you're my daughter. I just want to be a part of your life." My chest tightened. For a moment, I almost faltered, almost let him in. But then I saw my mother's face in my mind, her hollow eyes after he left, her weary hands scrubbing dishes to make rent. "You lost that right a long time ago," I whispered. "Don't call me again." I hung up before he could reply. And when I married Ryan, my father was nowhere to be seen. The seat he might have filled stayed empty, just as I wanted. At the time, I told myself that was the beginning of a new chapter. A clean slate, and for a while it was. Ryan and I built a life together. We bought a townhouse with a tiny backyard where I planted roses. On Sunday mornings, we made pancakes and danced in the kitchen. For anniversaries, he'd leave notes on my pillow, little reminders that he saw me, loved me, or so I believed. Meanwhile, I was building something of my own. While Ryan climbed the corporate ladder, I took a risk. At 27, I launched a small startup out of our guest bedroom, a digital design firm specializing in branding for local businesses. It started with 1 client, then 3, then 10. Slowly, steadily, it grew. I poured my heart into it, working late nights with coffee and determination, teaching myself things I didn't know, refusing to fail. There were months when the money barely covered expenses, when I wondered if I'd made a mistake. But then the referrals started coming, the invoices got bigger, and the firm began to take shape. By 30, I had 5 employees, a rented office space downtown, and a name that people recognized in the small business circuit. It wasn't just about money. It was about freedom. I wanted to know that no matter what happened, no matter what man left, no matter what promises were broken, I'd always be able to stand on my own 2 feet. That was the vow I had made to myself as a little girl, watching my mother cry into her hands. And it was the vow that carried me through the long days and sleepless nights. For a while, I believed I had it all. A marriage built on love, a career built on ambition. The family curse broken. But standing in my kitchen that night with Ryan's phone buzzing on the counter, I realized how fragile it all had been. How easily a single lie could unravel years of work, of hope, of dreams. And I swore to myself I wouldn't lose everything this time. This time, I'd make sure the ending was mine to write. The morning after I discovered Ryan's affair, the world looked the same but felt different. The sun rose, coffee brewed, cars lined up outside for the commute, but inside me, nothing was ordinary. I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through my phone, staring at messages I'd forwarded to myself the night before. Screenshots of texts between Ryan and his lover, time-stamped and undeniable. Photos. Videos. A paper trail of betrayal that I stored in a hidden folder, encrypted and password protected. Evidence. Because if I had learned anything from my mother's pain, it was this. When men cheat, they rewrite history. They say you're crazy. You're imagining things. You're overreacting. I refused to give Ryan that chance. When he came downstairs that morning, he kissed the top of my head as though nothing had changed. I smiled back, sipped my coffee, and said, "Don't forget we have dinner with the Parkers this weekend." "Of course," he said easily, grabbing his briefcase. "Love you." I held his gaze. "Love you too." The words tasted like poison, but I swallowed them, because my plan wasn't ready. Not yet. While Ryan walked out the door, I opened my laptop and logged into work. My team was preparing for a pitch to a mid-sized retail chain that could take our design firm to the next level. Normally, nerves would have eaten me alive. But today, I felt something else. Clarity. My heartbreak had turned into gasoline, and my company was the fire it was fueling. I poured myself into the work, designing until my eyes burned, refining presentations until they gleamed. I started arriving at the office before everyone else, leaving long after dark. My employees noticed. "You're on another level lately," my project manager, Lila, said one evening as we packed up. I smiled faintly. Just motivated. What I didn't tell her was that every late night kept me from lying beside Ryan. Every big win was a step toward independence. Every new client was another brick in the wall I was building between me and him. Then came the call. 2 weeks later, a representative from Horizon Group, a national branding powerhouse, reached out. They'd been watching my firm's progress. They liked what they saw. They wanted to explore a partnership. My heart pounded as I read the email. This wasn't just growth. This was opportunity on a scale I had never dared imagine. I told Ryan at dinner that night, my tone casual. Horizon reached out. They want to meet about a joint venture. His fork froze midair. Seriously? That's huge. I know. He grinned, pride flashing across his face. Harper, this is exactly what you've been working for. I knew you could do it. I smiled sweetly, hiding the bitterness that burned in my chest. He could sit there, pretending to cheer me on, while his late nights weren't spent at the office at all. You'll be amazing, he said, reaching for my hand. I let him hold it, but inside I whispered, I won't just be amazing. I'll be untouchable. The meeting with Horizon was everything I dreamed of. Glass towers, polished conference rooms, executives who saw me as an equal, not a gamble. We discussed markets, campaigns, scalability, and when they slid a preliminary proposal across the table, I felt a surge of triumph so strong it nearly knocked me breathless. This wasn't just business. This was my weapon. Because while Ryan thought he held the power in our marriage, I was about to outgrow him. My company, my success, my independence, they were my revenge, my shield, my proof that no man would ever chain me again. That night, back at home, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror while Ryan showered. I studied my reflection, tired eyes, but burning with determination. My mother's face looked back at me in fragments, the same cheekbones, the same stubborn mouth. But I wasn't her. She had been trapped, powerless, begging a man to stay. I was different. I had a plan, a company, a future that didn't need Ryan's name or his paycheck. And as the sound of the shower roared behind me, I whispered to myself, this ends on my terms. 6 months. That's how long I carried the secret, tucked beneath my ribs like a blade waiting for the right moment to strike. 6 months of smiling at Ryan across the dinner table, of letting him kiss my cheek, of nodding along when he told me about late meetings and out-of-town trips. 6 months of pretending I didn't know, but I knew everything. Every time his phone buzzed, I took note. Every time he slipped into the shower with his device left behind, I copied what I needed. Bank statements, hotel reservations, Uber receipts, pictures that made me sick to my stomach. I didn't confront him because I wasn't ready. Not yet. Confrontation would give him the chance to twist the story, to make me the hysterical wife. I wanted more than just the truth. I wanted the upper hand. So while he was busy playing house with someone else, I was building an empire. My partnership with Horizon Group exploded faster than even I could have predicted. Within months, my small design firm had grown into a recognized brand in its own right. We launched campaigns for retail giants, tech startups, and regional chains. My team doubled in size. We moved into a sleek, glass-walled office downtown, the kind of space I used to dream about when I was working from a spare bedroom. Reporters began calling. Forbes listed us as one of the fastest-growing women-led companies in the region. Investors wanted in. I shook hands with CEOs, signed contracts worth more than I'd ever thought possible, and with every success, I felt my backbone strengthen. My mother came to visit one day. She stood in the lobby of my new office, her eyes wide as she took in the logo on the wall. Harper, she whispered, her voice breaking. You built this. I hugged her tightly, hiding the sting of tears in my eyes. We built it, Mom. You worked yourself to the bone so I could go to school. This is ours. She didn't know about Ryan. I hadn't told her. I couldn't, not until I was ready. But she looked at me with so much pride, and for once I felt like I wasn't her broken reflection. I was her redemption. Meanwhile, Ryan grew more careless. His excuses sloppier. His business trips longer. Sometimes he came home smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, too distracted to notice the way I studied him. He thought I was still the wife who adored him. He had no idea the woman sitting across from him at the dinner table was already gone. The funniest part was how he bragged about me to others. At cocktail parties, he'd beam as he told people about my company, how proud he was, how hard I worked. He didn't realize every word made me stronger. Every introduction widened my circle. Every handshake pulled me further out of his shadow. And all the while, I was planning. I met with lawyers in secret, sliding contracts across polished desks. I secured my finances, separated my accounts, rewrote the ownership structure of my company so not a single piece of it could ever fall into his hands. I studied him like a hawk, waiting for the perfect moment. Not just to leave, but to make sure he could never hurt me again. The opportunity came one evening in late spring. He came home flushed, distracted, buzzing with energy. "Big news," he said, pouring himself a drink. "I'm up for a promotion. VP of Operations. It's practically in the bag." I congratulated him with a smile, but inside, something clicked. A promotion meant a celebration, a spotlight, a moment when he'd feel untouchable, certain he had everything he ever wanted. That would be my moment. Because I didn't just want to walk away. I wanted to flip the script, to take back the years he'd stolen from me, to make sure when I finally said the words, when I finally laid out the evidence, he'd lose more than just me. He'd lose everything. And so I waited. Patient, silent. My company soaring higher each day, my revenge sharpening with every deal signed, every client won. 6 months had turned me into someone new, someone harder, smarter, unbreakable. The girl who once swore she'd never be her mother was gone. And in her place stood a woman who was ready to burn the past to the ground. The night of the celebration felt like the beginning of a new life. The venue shimmered with glass chandeliers, white tablecloths, and golden accents. It wasn't just a company party, it was a coronation. Horizon executives mingled with local clients, reporters scribbled notes, photographers snapped shots of me in my emerald dress. My team buzzed with laughter and champagne. This was everything I'd worked for. My company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Ryan played the role of proud husband perfectly. He greeted guests, shook hands, poured drinks. To the outside eye, we were the picture of success, the ambitious CEO and her supportive husband. But beneath the polished veneer, I had a plan. Tonight wasn't just about celebrating growth. Tonight was about cleansing. Tonight, I was burning the rot out of my life once and for all. I had invited everyone who mattered. My employees, my clients, the media. My mother, dressed in a navy gown, her smile fragile but proud. And even my father. When he walked in with her, the mistress, Sarah, I felt the air tighten. My stomach clenched, but I steadied myself. I hadn't invited him because I wanted reconciliation. No, I wanted him to see, to watch me stand tall where my mother had once crumbled, to understand that his choices had planted the fire that fueled me. "Harper," he said softly, coming toward me. He looked older, grayer, but his eyes carried the same weight of regret. Sarah hovered beside him, her hand hooked through his arm like a claim. "You've done well," he said, almost in awe. "I'm proud of you." I met his gaze, expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming." No hugs, no warmth, just a nod. He seemed to understand that was all I'd give. I glanced at my mother across the room. She stood near the buffet, her smile dimming when her eyes landed on my father. She turned away quickly, busying herself with a glass of champagne. I knew it hurt her to see him with Sarah, but tonight wasn't about pain. Tonight was about liberation. As the evening went on, the room filled with laughter and clinking glasses. Ryan worked the crowd, boasting about me, about us. My father listened, nodding approvingly, while Sarah looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Finally, the MC tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if we could gather for a few words from the woman of the hour, our founder, our leader, Harper Hayes." Applause thundered as I stepped onto the stage. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't tremble. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in my head. "Thank you," I began, scanning the faces of my employees, my mother, my father, Ryan. When I started this company, it was just me and a laptop in a spare bedroom. I had no money, no connections, just determination. And now, because of all of you, we've grown into something extraordinary. Cheers rose up. Cameras flashed. I smiled, but my chest ached with the weight of what was coming. This company is my pride, my joy, my home. But homes need cleansing. Growth requires letting go of what holds us back. Tonight, I want to share something deeply personal because I believe honesty is the foundation of strength. The room quieted. My employees leaned forward. My mother's brow furrowed. Ryan's smile flickered, confused. I gestured to the technician at the projector. The lights dimmed, and the screen behind me flickered to life. At first, it showed numbers, charts of growth, milestones of our journey. Applause followed. Then the images changed. Text messages. Ryan's words to another woman. I miss you. Last night was perfect. A photo of them together in a hotel room. Another message. Don't worry, she has no idea. Gasps rippled through the room like thunder. My employees turned to one another in shock. Horizon executives sat frozen. Reporters raised their cameras. Ryan shot to his feet, his face pale. Harper, turn it off. Stop this. But I didn't. The images kept rolling. Every lie, every betrayal laid bare on the screen for everyone to see. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Tears welled in her eyes, but behind them I saw something else. Recognition. Vindication. My father's face turned ashen. He looked at Ryan, then at me, horror in his eyes. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, whispering something in his ear, but he didn't hear her. He was locked on me. When the last message flashed, Ryan telling her he wished he could spend every night with her instead of the wife, I stepped forward. My voice rang clear, steady, powerful. This is my husband. This is the man I trusted with my heart, my home, my future, and this is what he did behind my back. Lies, betrayal, disrespect. The silence was heavy, suffocating. I turned my gaze on Ryan. You thought you could take from me, cheat me, and I would stay silent, that I would be like my mother, begging, broken, small. But you were wrong. I will never be small. Not for you, not for any man. Ryan's voice cracked as he stumbled forward. Harper, please. This isn't the place. Let's talk about this at home. Don't do this. His parents, seated at the front, stared wide-eyed. His mother covered her mouth, shaking her head. His father looked furious at him, not me. No, Ryan, I said, my voice rising. The home you speak of is already gone. You destroyed it the first time you chose her over me. This isn't just about us. This is about every woman who's ever been told to swallow her pain, to accept betrayal as if it were normal. I turned then, my eyes locking on my father. His jaw tightened, his eyes glistening. For once, he had no words. You taught me this lesson first, I said, my voice cracking. You cheated on my mother. You broke our family, and you thought I'd forget. But I didn't. Your choices haunted me. They shaped me. And tonight, I want you to see what cheaters deserve. Gasps rippled again. My father bowed his head, shame etching deep lines into his face. I faced the crowd once more, lifting my chin high. To build something beautiful, you must first burn the rot. And tonight, I am cleansing my life of what poisons it. This man, I pointed at Ryan, trembling now, begging with his eyes, does not deserve me. He does not deserve this life. And he will never deserve the company, the home, the love I gave him freely. Ryan stumbled forward again, his voice breaking. Please, Harper, don't do this. I love you. I made a mistake. I'll change. Don't end this. But I didn't flinch. I steadied my voice, strong and earth-shaking. Love is loyalty. Love is respect. Love is honesty. You gave me none of that. So tonight, I give you back your lies, your betrayal, your empty promises. I don't need them, and I don't need you. The crowd erupted in murmurs, cameras flashing, whispers filling the air. Ryan sank back into his chair, pale and defeated. His parents sat in stunned silence. My mother stood, tears streaming down her face, but this time they weren't from weakness. She clapped, slowly, defiantly. One by one, others joined in. My employees, clients, friends. Applause filled the room, loud, unrelenting, like thunder rolling through the night. I took one last look at Ryan, broken, begging, and then at my father, who sat frozen chagrin, grief etched into his features. He knew this wasn't just about Ryan. It was about him, too. I lifted my chin, finished my champagne in one swallow, and stepped off the stage. And as I walked out of the hall, applause echoing behind me, my head held high, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. The fallout came fast and ruthless. The morning after the party, news outlets lit up with the story. Videos of my speech circulated on social media, clips of Ryan's betrayal blasted across headlines. CEO Harper Hayes exposes cheating husband at company celebration. My inbox overflowed with messages. Support from women I'd never met, shock from colleagues, cautious sympathy from reporters who called me brave and unflinching. Ryan wasn't so lucky. His mistress turned out to be a coworker at his firm, a woman in his department. HR launched an investigation within hours. His promotion evaporated overnight. By the end of the week, he was placed on administrative leave. It was poetic. His entire world crumbled just as mine was expanding. At home, I began my own cleansing. I hired movers to empty the house of everything that was his suits, his golf clubs, his gadgets. Box after box disappeared into a truck while I supervised with my arms crossed. It felt like shedding skin, peeling away the rot. Ryan showed up halfway through, his hair messy, his eyes bloodshot. He stumbled into the living room, panic written all over him. "Harper, stop. Please, don't do this." I didn't even look at him. "Everything in these boxes belongs to you. You can take them, or I'll have them dropped at your parents' house. Either way, they're leaving." He rushed forward, grabbing my arm. "Please just listen. I made a mistake. I was stupid. It didn't mean anything." I yanked free. My voice cut like steel. "It meant everything, Ryan. Every lie, every night you chose her over me, it meant everything." His eyes brimmed with tears. "You're my wife. We can fix this. Counseling, therapy, anything you want." I turned then, finally meeting his gaze. He looked so small, so pathetic, the proud husband stripped bare. "You don't get to beg now. You don't get to crawl back after shattering me." My voice rose, trembling with fury and pain. "Do you have any idea what it feels like to look at someone you love and realize they are no better than the man who ruined your childhood?" He flinched, shame burning in his cheeks. I stepped closer, my words low but sharp. "You didn't just cheat on me. You broke the little girl inside me who swore she'd never be like her mother. And you know what? She isn't. Because unlike my mother, I'm not begging. I'm not staying. I'm throwing you out." The movers carried the last box past us. Ryan stared at me, desperate. "I love you. I swear I do." I pointed at the door. "Then love me enough to leave." He stood frozen, his lip trembling, until finally he lowered his head and walked out. The door shut behind him with a finality that echoed through the house. For the first time in years, I exhaled. My mother stayed with me that night. We sat in the living room, surrounded by silence and half-empty wine glasses. She looked at me, tears glistening in her eyes. "I can't believe he did this to you. I thought he was different." A bitter laugh escaped me. "So did I." Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry, Harper. I never wanted this cycle for you. I thought if I warned you enough, you'd escape it." I reached for her hand. "You did warn me. You gave me every lesson I needed. And because of that, I didn't let him destroy me the way Dad destroyed you." She pressed her hand to her mouth, her body trembling with quiet sobs. "You're stronger than I ever was." "No," I whispered, squeezing her hand. "I'm strong because of you. You held us together when Dad walked out. You kept food on the table when you had nothing left. I'm just building on the foundation you gave me." She leaned into me, her head on my shoulder. For the first time in years, I felt like we weren't two broken women, but two survivors, bound not by pain, but by resilience. 2 days later, my father came. I found him standing on my porch, his hands shoved deep into his coat pockets, Sarah nowhere in sight. For a moment, I considered slamming the door in his face, but something in his eyes, shame, maybe, or regret, made me pause. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I let him in, though my chest tightened with every step. My mother sat stiffly on the couch, her face pale when she saw him. He hesitated, then nodded to her. "Claire." She looked away, her lips pressed tight. He turned to me. "I saw what happened the other night. I saw what Ryan did." His voice cracked. "And I saw you stand up there, stronger than I ever imagined. You were incredible, Harper." I crossed my arms. "Funny, I learned what not to tolerate from watching you." He winced, his shoulders slumping. I know I ruined everything. I know I broke your mother. I broke you." My voice rose, years of buried anger spilling free. "You didn't just break us. You shattered our lives. Do you know what it's like for a little girl to watch her mother beg for love? To hear her whisper that she wasn't enough? Do you know what that does to a child?" His eyes glistened. I was selfish. I thought I deserved more. I thought I could walk away without consequences. But the truth is, I've lived with regret every single day since. I shook my head. Regret doesn't erase the scars. Regret doesn't erase the nights I heard Mom cry herself to sleep. Regret doesn't erase the way I flinched every time a man promised me forever. Silence stretched. My mother sat stiff, tears streaming silently. I stepped closer, my voice steady but sharp. You need to understand something, Dad. Cheating isn't just about sex. It's about breaking people. It's about teaching daughters like me to doubt love and teaching wives like Mom that they're disposable. And tonight, I want you to see what your decisions created, because they made me hard. They made me relentless, but they also made me a woman who will never let a man own her again. His shoulders shook, and for the first time, I saw him cry. He looked at my mother then, voice trembling. Claire, I don't deserve it, but I'm sorry. For everything. For every night you cried. For every time I made you feel less. I was a coward. And I've paid for it every day. My mother stared at him, her expression unreadable. Slowly, she whispered, You can't undo the past. I know, he said, his voice breaking, but maybe I can help now. Maybe I can support Harper. Maybe I can stand on the sidelines and finally do something right. I felt my throat tighten. For years, I had wanted him to feel this pain, this shame. And now he did. I nodded once, firm. If you want to make amends, start by respecting us. Support us without excuses. Be a father without trying to rewrite history. He swallowed hard, tears dripping down his cheeks. I'll try. I swear I'll try. He reached for my hand. I hesitated, then let him take it. His grip was trembling, desperate. Forgive me, he whispered. Both of you, please. My mother didn't answer, but she didn't turn away either. And that, I realized, was as close to forgiveness as he'd ever get from her. As he left, he paused at the door, glancing back at us. You're stronger than I ever deserved to have as a daughter, Harper. Don't ever forget that. And then he was gone. The house was silent, the air heavy with ghosts. But for the first time, I felt like those ghosts had finally been named, confronted, stripped of their power. I turned to my mother, tears slipping down my face. We're free now. Both of us. She smiled faintly through her tears, squeezing my hand. Yes, baby. We are. And as the night wrapped around us, I realized this was the real beginning, not just of my company, not just of my freedom, but of a life where no man's betrayal could ever chain me again. The courtroom was cold. Not in temperature, the heat buzzed faintly from the vents above, but in atmosphere. Cold marble floors, cold steel chairs, cold silence as papers shuffled, pens scratched, and lives unraveled in neat legal sentences. Ryan sat across from me, his once proud shoulders slumped. His suit hung loose, like it no longer belonged to him. His eyes darted to me now and then, searching, pleading, but I kept mine fixed on the judge. Divorce granted. The gavel struck. Miss Harper Hayes retains sole ownership of Hayes Creative as well as the marital home. Mr. Ryan Carter relinquishes all claims. It was over in less than 20 minutes. A decade of love, betrayal, and wasted promises reduced to signatures and stamps. Ryan stood slowly, his voice breaking as he whispered, Harper, please. But I didn't let him finish. I stood too, my heels clicking against the tile as I turned away. The echo of my steps drowned him out. I walked out of that courtroom lighter than I'd felt in years. The following weeks were a blur of change. The house, once filled with shadows of Ryan's lies, became mine again. I repainted walls, moved furniture, brought in new light. My mother helped me hang photos of the company, of my team, of milestones that reminded me of the life I had built for myself. Ryan's ghost no longer lingered in the corners. He was just a chapter, closed and shelved. At work, Hayes Creative thrived. The scandal that nearly consumed me had instead ignited something greater. Clients trusted me more than ever, inspired by my strength, my unwillingness to be silenced. My company wasn't just about design anymore. It became a brand of resilience, a story people wanted to be part of. And me, I poured myself into it, into my team, into every campaign, into building something no betrayal could touch. I told myself I didn't need love. Not anymore. Love was a chain. Love was risk. Love was my mother begging, and me as a child crying in my room, and Ryan smiling while lying straight to my face. Love had cost too much. One night, over dinner, I told my mother the vow I had made. No more men, I said firmly. No more trust and promises. This company, this life, it's mine. And I'll never let a man take a piece of me again. She didn't argue. She just reached across the table, her hand warm over mine. Then build the life you want, Harper. Just promise me you'll leave a little space for joy, too. You deserve that much. Her words lingered, soft and bittersweet, but I brushed them aside. Joy, I told myself, would come from my work, from freedom, from never again belonging to anyone but myself. But not everyone agreed. My father visited a week later. He came alone again. No mistress, no apologies rehearsed this time, just him, standing in my living room with his hands tucked nervously into his jacket pockets. I heard the divorce went through, he said quietly. I nodded, folding my arms. It's done. He studied me for a long moment, his eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in years. Sorrow that wasn't just about him. It was about me. You've built this wall around your heart, he said finally. I can see it. I stiffened. I'm protecting myself. You of all people should understand why. He winced, nodding slowly. I do. God, I do. And maybe I don't have the right to say this, but Harper, his voice trembled. It kills me to see you like this, so determined to never let anyone in. You deserve love, real love, the kind I failed to give your mother, the kind Ryan was too selfish to give you. My jaw clenched. And what if it doesn't exist? What if every man is just waiting for the chance to betray? He shook his head fiercely. No, that's not true. I was weak. Ryan was weak. But there are men out there who aren't like us. Men who will cherish you, who will stand by you, who will see you as the force you are. I laughed bitterly. And you think I should just wait for one to show up after everything? No, he said, stepping closer. I think you should keep building your empire, keep living your life, but don't lock the door to your heart forever. Because one day, Harper, someone worthy will come. And when he does, I want you to have the courage to accept the love you've always deserved. I swallowed hard, anger and longing tangling in my chest. You broke Mom, I whispered. Ryan broke me. And now you want me to believe in fairy tales? He looked at me then with a rawness that caught me off guard. No, I don't want you to believe in fairy tales. I just want you to believe in yourself enough to know that you can demand better, that you never have to settle for lies, that when love does come, it will be on your terms. Silence hung between us, heavy and sharp. My mother appeared in the doorway, her expression tight. My father turned to her, his voice breaking. Claire, I can't undo what I did. I can't erase the pain. But I can promise this. I will spend the rest of my life trying to support you both, however you'll let me. And maybe one day you'll both believe I mean it. Her eyes softened for just a moment before she looked away. He turned back to me, his hand trembling as he reached out. Harper, I'm asking you for forgiveness I don't deserve. But I'm also asking you to promise me something. Don't let bitterness steal your chance at happiness. Don't let my sins or Ryan's sins define the rest of your life. I stared at his hand, at the man who had once been my entire world, and then my deepest wound. Slowly, I placed my hand in his. His grip was warm, fragile, human. I can't promise forgiveness, I said quietly, but I can promise I'll keep building my life. My way. He nodded, tears sliding down his cheeks. That's enough. He looked at me one last time, his voice a whisper. One day, Harper, you'll see, there will be someone out there who's strong enough, good enough, to love you the way you deserve. And when that day comes, I hope you let him in. And with that, he left. That night, I stood on my balcony, the city lights glittering like 1,000 tiny stars. The wind was cool against my skin, carrying with it the faint hum of traffic, life moving forward. I thought of my father's words, of my mother's tears, of Ryan's desperate pleading, and I thought of the girl I had once been, the girl who swore she'd never be her mother, the girl who believed love was enough. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who had faced betrayal head-on and refused to be broken. Maybe I would never love again. Maybe I would. But either way, I was whole. I was free. And as the city pulsed beneath me, alive and endless, I whispered to myself the vow that had carried me through fire and ashes. No man will ever own me again. My heart, my life, they belong only to me.